14 Venezuelan nationals killed in U.S. naval strikes. Fighter jets buzzing American destroyers. 4,000 U.S. Marines positioned off the Venezuelan coast. Russian Su-30 fighters armed with anti-ship missiles conducting attack runs in the Caribbean. This isn't a Cold War flashback. This is happening right now, in 2025, just 1,300 miles from Miami. The United States has deployed its largest naval force to the Caribbean since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group, 3 guided missile destroyers, a nuclear submarine, and enough firepower to level every military installation in Venezuela in 48 hours. Venezuela has responded by activating its entire air defense network, scrambling Russian-made fighter jets, and conducting the largest military exercises in its history. But here's what the headlines aren't telling you. This confrontation isn't really about drugs or democracy. It's about 300 billion barrels of oil, the world's largest proven reserves, sitting beneath a collapsing state. It's about China and Russia establishing a permanent military foothold 90 miles from the Panama Canal. And it's about a demographic and economic collapse so severe that Venezuela's ruling elite has nothing left to lose. 7.7 million refugees have already fled Venezuela. The southern Caribbean has become a powder keg, and both sides are holding matches. I'm James Whitfield from Faultline Economics. While others chase headlines, we examine the systems that actually shape history, geography, demographics, and economic fundamentals. Today, we're analyzing why the United States and Venezuela are on the brink of war. This is strategic clarity in a complex world. Let's turn to the strategic map. For 25 years, Venezuela has positioned itself as the anti-American bulwark in the Western Hemisphere. Hugo Chavez built his entire political identity on confronting what he called the empire. Nicolas Maduro weaponized this confrontation for survival. Venezuela controls the southern approach to the Caribbean Sea. Its coastline stretches 1,700 miles along critical shipping routes that carry 40% of U.S. seaborne trade. The country sits atop not just oil, but uranium deposits, rare earth minerals, and the Orinoco Belt, a petroleum reserve larger than Saudi Arabia's Ghawar Field. The current trigger: a stolen election in July 2024, where Maduro claimed victory despite losing by 16 percentage points, the arrest of 2,500 dissidents, an economy that's contracted 75%, the worst peacetime collapse in modern history. And most provocatively, Venezuela's threat to invade Guyana and seize the Essequibo region, where ExxonMobil just discovered 11 billion barrels of oil. The Biden administration responded with the largest Caribbean military deployment since Reagan. Unlike Iraq or Libya, Venezuela isn't isolated. It's protected by a new axis of anti-American powers who view Caracas as their beachhead in America's backyard. Factor 1. The demographic time bomb. Beyond the headlines, there are systems. And Venezuela's demographic system is collapsing faster than any country not at war. Since 2015, 7.7 million Venezuelans have fled. That's 25% of the entire population. But here's what they won't tell you. 80% have university degrees. 50,000 IT specialists vanished in a single month. This isn't just brain drain, it's demographic decapitation. The UN projects Venezuela's population will fall to under 20 million by 2030. The working age population is evaporating. Women of childbearing age are leaving at twice the rate of men. For Maduro's inner circle, this creates an existential calculation. They're not governing a country anymore. They're managing a controlled demolition. This desperation makes them infinitely more dangerous. Factor 2. The oil weapon. 300 billion barrels of leverage. Oil isn't just Venezuela's primary export. It's the entire conflict's center of gravity. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven reserves at 303 billion barrels. At current prices, we're talking about $27 trillion of hydrocarbons. But production has collapsed from 3.5 million barrels per day to barely 1 million. The 2019 US oil embargo destroyed PDVSA's ability to function. China stepped in, now taking 70% of Venezuela's oil exports at below market rates. Here's where geography becomes destiny. The US Navy can blockade Venezuela's oil exports with 3 destroyers. Every tanker leaving Venezuelan waters must pass through choke points controlled by US allies. Venezuela's threat to weaponize oil against America is hollow. They can't get it to market without US permission. If you're enjoying this analysis, subscribe to Faultline Economics. We dive deep into the structural forces reshaping our world. Factor 3. The proxy battlefield. Venezuela has become the forward operating base for America's primary adversaries. Russia's involvement isn't symbolic, it's substantial. 24 Su-30 Mk2 fighters, the 300 VM air defense system, and billions in military hardware. Russian contractors operate from La Orquilla Island. China has invested $60 billion through loans for oil deals. Chinese companies built Venezuela's surveillance architecture. The space monitoring station at Bamari Base tracks every US satellite pass. Iran provides the expertise to circumvent sanctions. Iranian engineers keep refineries running. The Quds Force trained Venezuelan intelligence. This alliance of sanctioned states has created a parallel economy immune to US pressure. Any US military action risks triggering responses from Moscow or Tehran elsewhere, Ukraine, Syria, the Strait of Hormuz. Maduro isn't just protected by his own military, he's a tripwire for global confrontation. Factor 4. The Essequibo Gambit. Venezuela's threat to invade Guyana over the Essequibo region is Maduro's most dangerous survival strategy. The Essequibo comprises 2/3 of Guyana's territory. ExxonMobil's discovery of 11 billion barrels of oil transformed this dormant dispute into an active flashpoint. In December 2023, Maduro held a referendum claiming 95% support for annexation. He created a new Venezuelan state and ordered PDVSA to issue extraction licenses in Guyanese waters. Guyana has no military capable of resistance, 3,000 personnel, no air force, no navy. Venezuela has positioned 5,000 troops near the border. The US has guaranteed Guyana's territorial integrity. Any invasion triggers immediate US intervention. Maduro knows this. He's using the threat of regional war as leverage against regime change. But all of this hinges on one deciding factor: the loyalty of Venezuela's military. The officer corps faces an impossible choice: stay with Maduro and risk dying in hopeless war against the US, or flip and risk execution by Cuban intelligence embedded in every unit. The US naval deployment is designed to force that moment of decision. Let's connect the dots together. Given Venezuela's demographic collapse and oil infrastructure decay, how long do you think the regime can survive? Drop your analysis in the comments. I read every strategic insight you share. The convergence is accelerating. US Southern Command has pre-positioned forces for rapid intervention. Marine units rehearse amphibious operations. Air assets in Puerto Rico can establish air superiority in hours. Venezuela's Sovereign Caribbean 200 exercises practiced anti-ship strikes and mining approaches. The activation of coastal batteries, dispersion of air assets, distribution of weapons to militias. These are preparations for asymmetric warfare after conventional forces are destroyed. For deeper understanding of petroleum conflicts, I recommend The Prize by Daniel Yergin. Get your free trial through Audible with the link below. This connects directly to our analysis of Russia's terminal economic collapse. And you can see how Moscow's weakness limits their ability to support allies like Venezuela. That breakdown is in the card on screen and linked below. So what does this mean for 2050? Venezuela as a unified state won't exist. The population will be under 15 million, predominantly elderly with no productive base. The oil infrastructure will be derelict. 3 scenarios dominate. Syrian style, collapse with regional powers carving spheres of influence. Yemen scenario, with proxy forces fighting while millions flee. Or negotiated transition internationalizing the oil sector. The strategic reality. The Monroe Doctrine is dead. Russia, China, and Iran have established permanent presence in America's hemisphere. The Caribbean is now contested space. The data doesn't lie. 7.7 million refugees, 75% GDP collapse. US warships 500 miles from Venezuelan shores. Russian fighters armed with anti-ship missiles. This isn't preparation for conflict. It's the opening phase of a new kind of warfare where economic siege, demographic collapse, and military brinksmanship converge. Maduro's regime can't survive, but it can choose how it dies. A cornered dictatorship with nothing to lose, protected by nuclear powers, threatening regional war. This is the most dangerous configuration possible. The future isn't written, but the blueprint is there for those who know how to read it. The US and Venezuela aren't approaching the brink of war. They're dancing on the edge, and the music is about to stop. If you gain something from this analysis, subscribe to Faultline Economics and give this video a like. We're building more content like this every week. And as always, stay strategic.